What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Slice of TV, where each week we are going through every single episode of HBO's The Last of Us. Today, we are talking about episode 5, Endure and Survive. I am your host, Brett Parker, and let's talk about it. So, as you know, we're going to go through the episode non-spoiler. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what of everything that went on in this episode, spoiler-free, and then, of course, we're going to talk some spoilers. But to be honest, if you're watching this, you should really be watching this show, and you should have really watched this episode because this is another good one. It's a banger, as they say. So today we are talking about Endure and Survive, which is episode 5, where we are continuing the journey with Joel and Ellie, and we are meeting new characters. We are seeing where characters that we saw in the last episode, we are seeing where they end up. And we get to see probably one of the most wild scenes in the show so far. It's insane. So buckle up. It's going to be a good one. So, like I said before, this is another amazing episode. Like, the show just continues to give me more of what I want, more of the things I already know, but also giving them that nice little twist that just it's great to see. Now, I love the changes that the show is doing with certain characters that we did meet in the game. We are seeing some different interactions with infected, which is really cool. And we also get to see exactly where one of the characters, Kathleen to be specific, where she ends up. Because unfortunately, this character will not make it past this episode. Now, to go into more details on things, let's talk about the characters we meet and what they do. So, at the end of episode 4, we got to meet, we got a glimpse of Henry and Sam. Now, Henry was mentioned in episode 4 by Kathleen as a person she really needed back. You know, she wants to punish this person, and we get the answer to why she wants to do this. We get the full story. We meet his little brother, Sam, who in this version of the story is deaf, which I thought was a very, very good touch because, to be honest, this character in the game was, it was a basic, I don't want to say basic, but it was a brother, two brothers, trying to survive, and that's about it. What they do in the show is they give Henry conflict with Kathleen and her group, which is not, she is not a character in the game. So we get to see the conflict, outside of everything, instead of it just being, hey, these are just two more survivors, and we get to see what they do. And then, unfortunately, things end the way they end. But they just continue to give us little snippets of different elements that are making things more interesting, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every bit of it. So Sam is deaf, and he's played by a deaf actor. Really, they're not gonna put his name. Kayvon Montreal Woodard is Sam. He is actually deaf, which is the representation is there, which is very nice. But you care about this character, I think, so much more because you feel like he's more vulnerable, and you see Henry's relationship with him and why he's so protective of him. Of course, they're brothers, so of course that's one element, but also the fact of, we find out other things about Sam, and then by the end, the show just loves to just punch you right in the stomach and laugh at you as you lay on the ground, wreathing in pain. So, yeah. Overall, I love the flow of the show. I love that even though we only see certain characters for a short amount of time, we fall in love with them. And this episode did exactly what episode 3 did, made us fall in love with Bill and Frank. And then by the end of that episode, you're tearing up because, even though you've known these people for 50 minutes, it hits you hard. And it's the same thing with Sam and Henry. So I think that's about it. I don't know how much more I can talk about without spoiling because literally my brain is going crazy to just be like, talk about it. So for anyone out there who's listening to this who hasn't seen this episode or hasn't even seen this show, why are you listening to this if you haven't seen any of the show? Because I can't do this justice. This show is so good. You need to check it out for yourself, and you really need to watch this episode because I'm about to spoil the crap out of it. So we open up this episode with kind of a flashback type deal. We see that that Kansas City is getting overthrown. Fedra is being wiped out, and Kathleen is kind of her and her brother are kind of the ones that rise to be the leaders of Kansas City now that it's run by free people. And I say that in quotations because the problem is that Kathleen's so dead set on vengeance or on revenge because of the death of her brother, which I guess was done by the hands of Henry, which the thing is about this is like the whole thing behind it is so heartbreaking because it's not just the fact of, Henry killed the brother. There's a whole backstory. And even though it's only about a minute or so, it really hits you hard. So yeah, we see the downfall of Kansas City from the Fedra hands. We see that Kathleen is ruthless and, she is dead set on finding Henry. We then are jumping back to the end of episode 4 where we meet Henry and Sam. They're holding up Joel and Ellie, and now they have to, kind of coexist. And you could tell that these characters don't do this often. And then you later find out that Henry's like, I've never killed anybody. I don't do these things. I pretty much held you up with an empty gun. But we also get to see like relationships form. You see Ellie kind of form a friendship with Sam, and it becomes really close. You see that Joel kind of opens up with Henry. At first it's of course like these people are holding us hostage, but then they, you grow to learn things about both these characters, Joel and Henry. And you get a lot of backstory behind the fact of like why there is an infected in Kansas City. They were all driven. Words are hard, guys. Bear with me. They're driven underground. And so that's why you don't see them anywhere. But in the last episode, if you remember, there was like this hole and it was like it was like breathing. And you're like, there's something under there. And in my head, I'm like, it's a bloater. Well, guess what? We get to see that for the first time, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So yeah, we get some backstories of like why there's no infected. We understand. Then we get the story from Henry of like, why is Kathleen so mad and why is she going after you? Well, guess what? I guess her brother was, he was the head of the resistance and he was the complete opposite of Kathleen. Mostly because I think Kathleen is just, like I said before, dead set on vengeance. She wants revenge for the death of her brother. So he pretty much has to give up her brother to Fedra because you find out that Sam has leukemia and he needs medicine to save Sam. So so in order to get that medicine, he gives up Kathleen's brother to Fedra, who then executes him. So even though Henry didn't personally kill him, he killed him by giving him up to Fedra. That's what pisses Kathleen off. That's why she's all in a hell-bent vengeance. And shit is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. I love these little side stories and these things that really flesh out the world that we're living in and or we're engrossed in. We then see, just Kathleen is just, she's broken. She is not who I think people expected her to be. She's not the leader that I think people want her to be because they know exactly what she's doing. But Perry, her side, like her right-hand man, is there to kind of encourage her to be like, guess what? I know this sucks. Your brother being dead, it sucks. We all loved him, but you are more than what he was. You're doing like he pretty much is like putting, I don't know if he's putting like false information in his head, but it's like, he didn't do anything. You are making a difference. So go on and continue to do what you're doing. We then see it's just more of Ellie, Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam having to travel out of the city to get outside the city. Pretty much, they want to escape Kansas City, and um, this is when you see it's kind of like an underground bunker where I guess people hungered down during the start of during when it all started, when the pandemic started. And that is a piece of the game that actually happens. We get to see this room. We get to see a picture that's actually, I know a lot of people probably didn't understand what it was, but there was pictures of two Fedra agents. One's name was Ish. I can't remember what the other name was, but it was something from the game where you actually have to go around and you collect notes that tells you the story of this character. I don't know. I don't remember the story to an extent, but you can look it up online. It's a big part of the game. I like how it's a cool little Easter egg. They just show it. They don't really explain to you anything. You really get to see Ellie and Sam connect more because Ellie notices Sam has a comic book that she also has read, so they kind of connect on that. And they're kids. They're playing soccer, and Joel is being typical Joel, kind of being secluded to himself until Henry kind of breaks the ice and tells him the story about Kathleen's brother and all that stuff and why he did what he did. It's one of those things where if you have played the game, you know exactly what's coming down the road, but how is it going to go? And how is Kathleen going to play in the story going forward? Well, things get crazy because we get to a section, they escape the city. They get to a part, it's like an old suburban, it's like outside the city, so it's like a suburban neighborhood, and they're going down, it's covering cars, and there's a sniper in a house that's shooting at them, which is part of the game. As I will mention, I always mention things that I remember if it's part of the game. So pretty much Joel has to he pretty much has them distract him, and then he goes around and takes out the sniper. You find out it's like an old man, and I love how it's not just Joel going up to this guy and just taking him out. You see that this man he's an elderly man. He has seen a lot of shit, and I don't think that he just sees any future. I mean, we don't know who this person is. We don't know his name, but it's one of those things where like Joel walks in and the guy knows he's caught, and Joel just goes, "Don't," because he knows exactly what he's going to do. And of course, you just hear the gunshot. You see that Joel has killed him. And then Joel kind of picks up the mantle of being the sniper because you see that Kathleen and her gang is coming for him. And you get a really intense scene where you have this front vehicle with like a plow on the front that's just plowing through these vehicles, just taking everything out to try to run down these three. You got Ellie shooting. This is the one thing that kind of bothered me, though, is like Ellie was running in a straight line. I'm like, have you not seen Prometheus? You don't run in a straight line when you have something big coming up on your ass. I'm just saying. So everything is, they hide. Kathleen gets out, and there's this just absolutely gutting. Not really a speech, but it's just Kathleen having a conversation with Henry as he gives himself up, and he's like, why, or she explains, I know why you did what you did, but don't you think like that was the plan for Sam to die? Kids die every day. And I was like, damn, this woman is just hell bent to kill this man. She does not care. She wants to take out any reason for the justification of why he did what he did. She just wants him dead. She doesn't believe that her brother deserved to die, which, in reality, he probably didn't. He seemed like a nice guy. Of course, Henry even states that he was a nice guy. He helped him out. Unfortunately, to save his brother, he had to give up somebody. And so to give up the leader of the resistance, unfortunately, that's just how things have to play out. And unfortunately, the plow truck crashes into a house and it blows up. And as she finishes off this speech and he kind of gives himself up and she's about to kill him. And of course, it's that poetic timing. The truck sinks into the ground, and immediately you're just like, oh shit, what's about to happen? You know what's going to happen. As they stated before, the infected were driven underground, and that's why you never saw them around the city. Well, guess what? They have been set loose because it's a sinkhole, and so many infected, stalkers, clickers, and then we get to meet the bloater. And this thing, different from the game, of course, because in the game, the bloater is actually able to rip off parts of itself and throw it, and it like explodes into like spores, which they don't have the spores element in the show, so he's just a giant brute. Now a bloater is the final stage of infected. Like that's the oldest infected. Now Joel had mentioned it in other episodes, or in another episode when Ellie asked him about, how long can infected, last, and he would state like weeks or months, and then he said some of them have been around for 20 years. Now this is one of those that have been around since the beginning, because this is the final stage. These things are huge. They're brutes. They are covered from head to toe in the cordyceps, in the fungus. It's terrifying. I mean, and the thing is, it's just throwing people around. To be honest, the bloater's not even the most like terrifying part of the entire situation. I mean, of course, the clickers are. I think the clickers are the scariest infected. Just the sounds they make. But these things, like there were things running, and it's chaos. It kind of looked like World War Z, but a little bit better, And, you have Sam and Henry hiding under cars. Yeah, everybody avoiding things. Of course, Ellie is, she's trying to avoid things as well. And Joel's up in the house trying to snipe at the infected to try to clear some paths. Unfortunately, you see there's a shot of Sam and Henry under the truck, and there's a couple clickers, or could be clickers or stalkers. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with the way that the scene was shot. And, yeah, you kind of get an idea what's about to happen. I won't mention it quite yet. But we do get probably the coolest kill of this entire scene. Actually, I don't know. It's pretty close between our boy Perry, who gets taken out exactly the way you get taken out by a bloater in the game, which is they literally, for all my audio listeners, both hands go inside the mouth, and it just tears the face in half by the jaw, and it's it's terrifying in live action, as terrifying as it is when you first see it, especially when it's your character, when you're controlling Joel, when you get caught by a bloater and he just rips your face apart. But to be honest, the scariest infected was this little girl, Clicker, which is just like, it's heartbreaking because you're like, oh man, to have to see a child infected, even a child clicker. So this clicker, Ellie gets into a car, the clicker follows her and does some really cool contortionist moves throughout the car, which this clicker was played by a contortionist. And Ellie ends up getting out of the car before she's attacked by the little clicker. And we get one more opportunity. Kathleen takes her last shot. Like, every chaos is surrounding her. Her people are dying. Perry is gone. I don't think she sees an end. She just wants Henry dead. That is her ultimate goal. She doesn't care if she dies. And, she holds the gun up to him. And that's when you see the little kid clicker, and it attacks her, and it claws the shit out of her. And they end up escaping. It's a wild scene. It's a well done scene. I love how it's all lit by fire. There's not a lot of lights other than the vehicles. It's just mostly lit by the fire. I love the way the infected look. This child clicker was terrifying. It was a nice touch, but it also it makes you feel different emotions, because it's not just like, oh, that's creepy. It's like, no, this was a child, and now look at what she's become. But the bloater was really, it was something we had seen in the trailers. We knew it was coming, but when was it coming? And when you first see it, it's great to see. So Joel, Ellie, Sam, and Henry, they escape. They get to like a old motel, and this is probably the most emotional part of this entire episode, which is Henry and Joel kind of connect. They have conversations, just kind of about, how kids kind of have it easier during this because they can handle things better, which is okay. I feel like it would scar them more, but hey, it's just Joel trying to figure, he doesn't really know. You have Ellie and Sam kind of talking about the going over the comic book. She's just kind of reading it to him, and he's got one of those things, and I can't remember what they were called. It was kind of like it's got like a plastic sheet, and there's like magnet. There's like a weird pad underneath where when you write it, you can write words or draw pictures on it, and then once you pull up the plastic piece, it disappears. And so that's how Ellie and Sam have been communicating. And this is when you get the heartbreaking scene when he writes on the pad, even when you turn into a monster, are you still you inside? And that's when Ellie is like, oh no, he's bitten. So she goes and she tries to save him because she's like, I'm immune. I'm going to try to, like, my blood is pure. Like, my blood can save you. So she tries to, like, she cuts her hand. She puts the cut on his infected wound to try to save him. She feels very confident that this is going to work. I feel she feels confident, but maybe she's just hoping for the best. And it's that one thing where it's like, stay with me, don't, stay awake with me. And she promises until the next morning when you know exactly what's going to happen, where she goes up to Sam and he's turned and he attacks her. And this is the heartbreaking scene because this is when, of course, Ellie's getting attacked. Joel wants to save her, but Henry is holding Joel up. And then it gets to the point where Henry just shoots Sam. And he's so distraught by what he did. He questions it. He's just, it's the end. Like, what's the point now? And he ends his life. And even though I knew that this was coming, because this does take it straight from the game, it's so much harder because I feel like I connected with Henry and Sam more in the show than I did in the game. Because, like I said, they were just two infected. They were just two people that were trying to survive, just like Joel and Ellie. And they run into Joel and Ellie, and you get to you kind of grow attached to them in the game, and of course it's still heartbreaking seeing the scene in the game, but Sam going through what he goes through, and Henry just being there for him and sacrificing so much to save him, to see how it ends, it's awful. And of course the episode ends with Joel and Ellie burying Henry and Sam outside the motel, and Ellie leaves an I'm sorry note on top of Sam's grave, and they move on to episode 6. So this show is just fantastic. I just don't know what else to say about it. Like, I am just chomping at the bit every time it's Sunday and another episode is out, and I can't wait to turn it on. And this is one of those shows, like, I don't like there's only select few shows that I've ever like rewatched episodes more than once, like in a short amount of time. Usually it's like I watch the episode, I kind of get the gist, and we move on. This is such an impactful show that I will watch episodes more than once to get, maybe I missed something, or just it's so good I have to see it again. It's just like, rewatching your favorite movie. This show was going to be rewatched for a very, very long time in my life. It's going to be good. I can't wait for the rest of the season or episode 6 is coming out. I know this review came out a little late because the episode actually came out on Friday because of the Super Bowl. So we got the episode early, but unfortunately you're getting this review. It's more of just me breaking down the plot. You know how we do this here. But I hope hopefully we'll have a guest next week. Hopefully I'll have guests for the rest of the season. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do to get you guys what hopefully you guys enjoy the episodes a little bit shorter than usual. When it's just me talking, sometimes that's just how it happens. But I am so happy that people are downloading the episodes. We've been getting great, download numbers on all these episodes. So I have a lot of fun doing them, and I hope you have a lot of fun listening to them because it's been a blast. So what did you think of this episode? What did you think of episode 5 of The Last of Us? Make sure to leave a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure to leave a comment on whatever podcast service you listen on if you can. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. Leave us reviews, all that fun stuff. Make sure to follow us on all the social medias at Dissect That Film. Or you can follow me at Parker Dissects on Twitter and Instagram. Also, you guys like my Anaconda shirt? All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Brick Parker, and this has been another episode of Slice of TV. Bye.